It's thinking. Oh my gosh. I hope that this thing doesn't give us problems tonight. All right, we are live. Ready? Sandy says read, and welcome to the channel. You guys, we have something special for you this evening. Tonight's live stream is with a guest we've already seen here once before. This is the fabulous Mr. Steven Zimmer. He is the publisher extraordinaire at Seventh Star Press. He is the founder and owner of the Imaginarium Convention, and he is an author. You guys, that's why we're talking to him tonight, because he is the author of the brand new Days of Darkness, a Hellscapes novel. And Steven, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do? Introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, tonight, since we are focusing on the storytelling side of things, I think I'll stick there. And it's great to be back. Sandy Says Read, and yeah, I'm a returning guest. That's exciting.
Yeah, that's right.
So yes, I didn't blow myself up the last time.
We didn't get enough. We had to bring you back. Yeah.
But I actually did a check on this recently, but I have 32 books in print now. So I write primarily speculative fiction. A lot of my work is in the fantasy and cross genres. And I have several series. A couple that are more known are the Raiden Valkyrie and Ragnar Stormbringer tales. I have epic fantasy, my Fires in Eden series, Rising Dawn saga. And then the Faraway saga, which is YA dystopian. I always talk about it as Brave New World and 1984 meets Narnia. So that's a fun one. And then I have my Hellscapes tales, which is its own little sector of my writing, and it's fun to talk about because it's just so very different from everything else that I do. It gives me a whole different palette to paint the canvas with. So it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So so as a storyteller, that's what I do. And then, of course, I also work as an editor. So I love, looking at words and structure and things like that. And so I have a real passion for writing as a craft too. So I'm here to talk about it all.
All right, wonderful. Well, let's talk specifically then about Days of Darkness. That is the book that you're currently on tour for, is Days of Darkness. And that one, I did get to read it for you and did a quick review here on the channel, and folks can go look at that review if they wish. I tried to stay spoiler-free during the review, and I think we're going to try not to give away too many spoilers here tonight, but we'll see how that goes. We need to welcome Dwan. Dwan L. Hearn has just joined us in the chat. Hi, Dwan.
Hey, Dwan.
Yeah, he's saying hey to us.
Hello, Moon. Yes.
Exactly. Now, as folks come into the chat, if you guys have questions that you would like to ask of Steven, please type those into the chat, and please be patient with me. If I don't notice them right away, it's just because I'm a terrible host, okay? I will get to them as soon as I notice them there. But Steven, I want us to start with a little Edgar Allan Poe, because as I was reading Days of Darkness, there were throwbacks to H.P. Lovecraft, there were throwbacks to Clive Barker, but I saw so much symbolism, so much richness of symbolism in this book. But I saw some Edgar Allan Poe, and I wonder if you would like to talk to the audience about that.
That is a certain scene where just the way the scene was working out, and it was completely natural. I had an idea for this lavish party scene with some real upwardly mobile folks that, are fairly well-to-do and fairly powerful in the city, and very hedonistic. And they gather as things are starting to break out in the Days of Darkness, but they don't know, it hasn't gotten to the point where everything's obvious what's really happening in the world. And so in that scene, as I was working with it, I thought, I have an opportunity here, because I knew what I wanted to do with it. I knew what kind of entity I was going to have in that scene, and the certain crowd and where they were, and they were all inside this real lavish kind of penthouse apartment, real high rise, kind of real expensive kind of place. And, they're all doing drugs and drinking and extracurricular activities of the physical kind. And so I thought, why not? I thought it'd be fun to just put a few little nuggets in there just to make it a little bit of an homage to one of my favorite writers and my favorite story by that writer. And it just worked out that way. And so, if you do look in that scene, you will see just enough to pick up an homage to Mask of the Red Death.
Nice.
It's in there.
All
I mean,
right,
it's
very
not
good.
it's not like so on the surface that hits you over the head and
Mm,
says, "Oh yes, this is a yeah." But if you look at kind of structurally what's happening in the scene and how it unfolds and what happens in that scene, you'll see a little bit of an homage to that
mhm.
short story that I love so much. So I thought
Nice.
that was fun. I mean, that's kind of like a guitar player, working in some kind of like a little riff or something from one of their favorite players, and that's
Nice.
very similar to kind of how I felt when that came up. And it was very
Nice.
very organic, so it was a nice surprise. I mean, I always leave my room when I write. I say I never outline to the point that I don't have room to breathe, and this is one of the prime examples. I had room to breathe, and so I could have a little fun with that.
Nice, nice. Now you just mentioned, the entity that you had in that scene, or that was in, the penthouse apartment, that entity that was in there. You have a host of monsters and entities in Days of Darkness, different sizes of
Well,
entities in
quite the
there.
menagerie, yes.
Yes, yes. And I don't want to say, what was your inspiration for these different monsters, but I kind of do want to ask, what was the inspiration, or how did you come up with so many different types of monsters? I mean, so many of them had different ways of consuming people as well. I mean, how did you come up with that?
Well, it is fun. I mean, that's I guess it's. I mean, people might find it strange, but I do love creature design. I've always loved monster movies and creatures ever since I was a little kid. I mean, as
Okay.
far back as I remember, and of course, loved horror films growing up and all that. And for this, though, I mean, it's no holds barred, and this kind of story allows me just to have no rules. I mean, there are no limits on it, and so I take inspirations from a lot of places. I love looking at insects under close, like microscope kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about, where they get
Yeah.
images of like insects and stuff at high magnification. You can get a
Hmm.
lot of
Hmm.
ideas that way. That's one way.
Right.
Oh yeah, if you want to really freak yourself out, take a look at a lot of that stuff.
Right.
But then I also have a lot. I have a very vivid dream world, dream life, and so some things in there actually I get straight from dreams. And
Okay.
I don't call them necessarily nightmares, but I just get them straight from dreams. I get a lot of creature kind of things that I see in dreams, and I will I'll kind of jot things down after I have one of those dreams and kind of put it in my little toolbox for later. And something like Hellscapes, yeah, I get to pull out of the box and use it. So yeah, so some of the stuff is inspired by things in our world. Some things are inspired by dreams, and then some are, if you like, in some of the scenes you notice they're kind of like amalgamations of different creatures
Hmm.
where I've combined a couple things. And
Yeah.
but as you kind of hinted at, the scale of the story grows throughout, and that's on purpose. We'll probably get a little bit more into that as we talk about it. But yeah, the creatures had to escalate. They did. I mean,
Hmm.
in the beginning, it starts with kind of like a few apparitions, and they're kind of ghostly. And then as it starts going, they start appearing in physical forms, but they're not too big yet. And then as you notice, the scale of them increases until the end, where we get the Colossus, the
Right.
Lovecraftian kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, that's all I'll say about it, because I don't want to give too much away about what comes out at the end. But yeah,
Yeah.
but yes, there is a progression throughout the whole
Mhm.
book.
Right, right. Well, and you mentioned some of these, appear in your dreams. You have them in some of your dreams. Just the writer in me wants to know, okay, so do you keep a notepad next to your bed? I mean, how do you make sure you capture what you see in your dreams?
It's the modern day version.
Oh,
I'll message
okay.
myself on my phone. I'll just grab my
Okay.
phone real quick and message myself really quickly, because I
Okay.
have my phone right next to my nightstand, or it's on my
Okay.
nightstand, and I'll grab that and just get a quick note for myself, just so while those images are fresh, because as you
Hmm.
know, dreams kind of details fade if you don't get them down right away. So yeah,
Hmm.
I tend to get them away, and some of them are just so stark and vivid that yeah, I wouldn't even need to write them down. I mean, I just yeah, I'll remember them pretty good,
Okay.
even waking up. So I had
Right.
fun. I had a lot of fun. I got to pull out a lot of things that I've been wanting to use for a while.
Nice. Okay. All right. Now, I have to admit that I haven't read any of the short stories that are in like the Hellscapes volumes that you've done in the past. So I wasn't sure if what I was seeing in this novel was like all new stuff for this Hellscapes world, or if some of it was borrowed from those short stories. Is this all new? Everything that's in here?
The hellscape stories are, I mean, they are a variety of tales, but they all are
Okay.
hellscapes, and they all
Okay.
take place and they all happen in a similar way. They usually involve like one main character who is coming to revelation about that particular hellscape and why they're there. They take a whole range of forms. I mean, some of them
Okay.
are fantastical, some of them are more realistic, some of them are just really dark and macabre. And I mean, there's a whole lot of different flavors of them. But within them, I do have some interesting characters that recur, and they play a role that's almost kind of like a Greek chorus in a way, like the Greek theater, like the chorus kind of role, and in a little bit of a way. And one of them's the stranger, and another one's the crusher, and those two figures appear in this one. But there's also other ones like the prophet. He's
Right.
new. He has not appeared in any of the previous ones. So the longtime readers of the Hellscapes stories will get to have a couple of these figures get to visit with them again, so to speak. And if they know a little bit about them, they'll kind of get a few little clues as to what's going on. But there are new ones introduced, and I had a lot of fun adding some of the new ones that are kind of like that too, that factor in, especially when they come back to the city. There's a female figure that's at the gate to the city, and then there is a real tall, menacing guy that leads this weird procession to that former cathedral. And so some of these characters that I put all around the hellscapes, and they're kind of like, like I said, they're a recurring figure. They are new. So there is new, and then there is some recurring.
Okay. Some familiarity.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because one of the questions I wanted to ask on here is, okay, who is the prophet and who is the stranger? I mean, are those characters based off of like biblical characters? I mean, the biblical implications in this story are just all over the place. I mean, we can't get away from that. We'll have to discuss that at some point. But I mean, who is the prophet and who is the stranger? Or are those people completely from your imagination?
Yeah, they largely are. I mean, they are not envisioned as like fallen angels or demons, but they are a part of the hellscapes world. They are not the souls that are condemned to those hellscapes. They transcend that, and they are, in a way, they're the ones that kind of are the ones that make sure that the people there understand, eventually, that what they're in for. And so they're the ones that kind of are like the pronouncers of doom in a way, in different ways. But they serve that function. So they are the mechanism of condemnation for, in terms of overtly making the characters aware of that.
Okay.
But they kind of serve those worlds, but they aren't like confined to any one of them, and that's why you see them in various stories. But they're not meant to be just like a demon or a fallen angel, but they do serve a function, and they are, each one of them has their own little differences. Like the prophet was more of a proclaimer of doom, whereas the stranger is more about the sheer madness that kind of kicks in with the being condemned, and that's kind of what he represents. Just how it's just your mind just it's just overwhelming. So he represents kind of a little bit like madness, a little bit, where the other one's more of a broader proclamation of doom kind of character.
Okay. Well, and I saw the stranger more as a guide than I did see the prophet that way, but I saw him almost as a guide in this world. I mean, he was sort of guiding and showing, okay, next you're going to have to do this. Next you're going to have to do this. Well, they kept saying, what comes next? What comes next? Right. And
but see, there's a madness to that though, because he's guiding them to their ultimate revelation. That's what he's guiding them to, which is just horrifying. And when they finally do realize what it is, and finally comprehension comes. So what he is guiding them to is not helpful. It's I mean, it helped.
It's not a good guide.
Some of the stories, it seems like he is helping them through the world a little bit, but what he's guiding them toward is something awful. So that's why I said it's kind of like there's a maniacal kind of aspect to the stranger. He's my favorite, and he's probably the one that has appeared the most in these stories.
Okay. All right. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Ambrose. our main character in this story. And I want to talk about some of the, I don't know if I would call them levels to what he's going through, but I want to ask you if he was being spared for the end. I don't know if I just gave everything away or not, but the guide was obviously, or the stranger was obviously guiding him toward, an end, right? But was he being spared some of the horrors that he was seeing so that he could come to that revelation, so that he could come to that end? And if he was being spared, Stephen, why?
Why they get the worst? Because he and the ones that are at the end, if you look at the various sectors that are going on, you have some that are kind of representing raw violence in the world, some that are representing people that just totally just are nihilistic or give themselves in, just willingly give themselves into substance stuff, and to the extent that it destroys them and everybody around them, those kind of addictions. And then you have all the things that are just true evils in our world. But if you look at Ambrose and the group at the end, and I want to give this little hint, notice that they're the people of power in the city. They are the people, they're part of the power structure. They're the people that one would call the elites. And I hate using the term elites because I find those kind of people parasites. I don't find them elite at all. Even if they are, holding the levers of governmental power or corporate power, I find them, some of the worst people out there. And at the end, you'll notice that that's the gathering. That's who saved it for the end. So, all this horrible stuff that you've seen along the way, well, the worst is for the last group, and kind of more or less. And so, they think they've, in a way, I think that Ambrose and others, because they haven't been subjected to what everybody else is, it's kind of like, they think they're safe, or they got it made, or they're in cahoots with the new power structure that's come into this world. What is ensconced in that former cathedral, the entity there, which is even a servant of something greater that comes through at the end. And so they think they've just made like a transition of power, and then what happens in the end is what I think is a fitting reward for that type. So, and Ambrose, and you experience it through Ambrose's POV. You and this, and you get the feeling that's what's going to happen to all that gang. But I'll leave the details out there.
Yeah, well deserved. Well, and there's, as I mentioned in my review earlier this week, there was much despair in what was going on. So much despair. Yeah, thumbs up for despair. Yeah. But there were points in the story where I'm like, Ambrose, give up. Dude, you are doomed. You need to just give up, lay down, and let one of these creatures devour you so that you don't have to go through any more. I don't know if I was feeling sorry for him, or if you had done such a good job of presenting the malaise and the horror that I just wanted him to give up and just be done. I was like, dude, end it for yourself. It'd be done.
Well, I think a lot of people think I think in the book, if you look at a lot of people think it's something that's going to pass. Like this is a cataclysm that's going to pass. It's like a storm that's going to pass through. The sun will rise again, even if though it hasn't for quite a while. A lot of the characters, I think, in there are kicked into kind of like a survival mode, and humans, I think, have an extraordinary ability to live in just some of the worst and most awful of conditions, like in the middle of wars or poverty-stricken countries. I mean, people still fight, and they still fight to survive, even if they're not necessarily good people. I mean, they still have a certain survival instinct that kick in. So even though these aren't the best of people per se, they definitely have that kind of let's keep going forward and see what happens. So there is a little bit of a that survival instinct that they haven't comprehended the as you say the despair quite yet, that's really facing them, because they don't understand entirely that this is not anymore Earth. that this is
That's right.
something else. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is something else. Even though it looks like the world that they knew, even though it seems like, and has many, resembles it at first, they don't realize it's something else. And
Right.
that's what I think. That's what I think's going on there.
Well, when he finally, I don't remember when in the story it happens, but when he finally loses his cell phone connection, when there's no more cell towers, he can no longer get a connection on his cell phone. He can't reach
Everything goes
anyone.
down.
Then he's like, oh, how are we going to come back from this? Dude, you're not. You're not coming back from this. I think that's when Ambrose starts to realize we're not coming back from this. How can we?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Despair.
And then he, at that point, he's trying to escape, and it moves from an urban setting to a suburban setting, and then to a rural setting. And then it goes full circle. There's a big structure, and it's kind of loops, and shows, that everything is kind of connected.
Yeah. It comes back.
Yes.
All right. So I think that I was seeing like as Ambrose was able to keep going, and like he kept surviving, if you can call that survival, but he kept surviving these things that were happening to the poor unfortunate souls around him, right? Like he kept surviving these things. And I was wondering if he was given favor. I was wondering if the prophet and the stranger, if they were allowing him to survive, if they were guiding him somehow because he had favor in this doomed world. And
that gets back to what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, he's part of the group that's been selected to be the main course of their meal. And so yes, they're being allowed, and all the others are definitely not the best of folks, but yeah, they're dealing with other things. But the worst, what I hope people get of this is that what I think is some of the worst of evils out there, the people engaged in that are actually spared until they get the end. For lack of a better phrase, the people, those like the stranger, the prophet, and all the entities that are governing all this, they saved their favorites for last. So it's kind of diabolical. It's not a reward in the end. I mean, it's what's coming to them is actually the worst. But yes, that's why they kind of are spared in the early stages. But that's the point. It escalates. The whole everything escalates. It gets worse. And you'll notice that's a very conscious writing structure. In terms of the storytelling, everything is just getting worse and darker as it goes, and then it builds up to what I call the grand finale. And that's at the former cathedral, which is now basically an unholy temple, where where the second command entity is enthroned at that point. And then the big one, well, we won't get into that, but there's one even greater than that one comes.
Well, and maybe you can share with the audience the way this is structured, I think was brilliant. Okay. Because like you say, it builds up and it builds up and it ramps up. And there are clues hidden throughout that show, okay, we're building into something pretty massive and dark and full of despair, right? We're building to that. But there are little clues that you have dropped throughout this. For instance, in the beginning, when Ambrose is on his way to work, I think it's the very first morning when he's on his way to work, and he notices that the cross has been removed from that cathedral. The cross is missing. For some reason, it's missing. And he just makes a mental note of that and just keeps on going to work. It's little hints like that you've dropped into this story that are leading up to that climactic moment. That's one that I picked up on on his first day.
When he drives past the school, what's missing on the playgrounds? What's missing?
All those kids are missing. There's no children in this world.
And it doesn't click. And that's part of the fog that these people are in. They don't think about that. But the kid, there's no children. And so that to me, that's a pretty stark hint that this is a different world, and what's being meted out is to ultimately those that deserve it. It's not something that falls on the innocent. This is a case of, this is a book about justice. It's not a case where, a natural disaster happens everything happens to everybody, the innocent, the guilty, everything in between. In this one, no, this is where the innocent have been called out of it. They're not part of this. And,
well, and his housekeeper, his housekeeper obviously is one of the innocent ones, right? She's not there. Like his very first morning when he wakes up,
got another one.
And, he gets out of the shower and she's late. He
Yep.
considers she's late for work. And so
Glad
his
you
first
caught
thought,
that.
his inner monologue is like, oh, she's late for work. I'm going to dock her a whole week's pay. And I thought, well, Ambrose is kind of a crappy guy. What the heck? That's my first hint that he wasn't really a nice fella. And where is his housekeeper? He should probably worry about her, maybe give her a call. And then, she just doesn't show up for work the next day either. And she never comes to work.
Nope.
Well, she was raptured, right? She was one of the innocents.
That's
She doesn't have to live through this.
Part of it.
Yeah.
And this is the people that are, I mean, like narcissistic. I mean, this is the kingdom of the narcissists at this point. And that's why they don't think about, is she all right? Their first thought is, oh, I don't have.
How does this? Yeah, it inconveniences me. Yeah.
And I'm glad you caught that, because that's another hint I put in there.
Yeah.
But there are several, and I think when they notice about the lack of the cross and the lack of children and some of those things, I think people start to see there's something up with this world, even though it seems physical at the time, and to the characters it feels physical, but something is different about it.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's see. What else do I have on here that I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the naming conventions that you used in this story. You have our mayor of the city. Our mayor's name is Gavin Whitmer. And I'm wondering perhaps if maybe that was a callback to current times. And were there any other names that you played with and had fun playing with?
Not too overtly. I mean, there's definitely have a little bit of fun with some of these things, and play with some of the trying to come up with interesting combinations of names that might draw from inspirationally. They're not meant to be exact representations.
Right.
It's not like Dante's Inferno where I come out where somebody comes out and says, okay, this is this person and this is this person.
Right.
But it's more of a representation of a type of person. And somebody that's that's definitely the narcissistic political type who is definitely into the power structure, and even if they say they're doing I'm a public servant, no, they're not. They are they're rulers. They're rulers. They're not public servants. And they rule by diktat. And I think executive order type of things, and things like that, and of course legislation and whatnot. But I mean, just making life worse for most people is ultimately what comes from this type, and that's what this is about. They're definitely making life awful for the largest number of people, and that's why they're in that last group that I talked about.
Okay. All right. Okay. We have gone through the questions I had written down. What overall concept or overall item would you want the audience to know about going into reading Days of Darkness?
I think that it's not just shock value. There are layers to it. It is a warning about being able to see and recognize evil and the nature of evil and its many faces. And so I think there is a very positive side of this, because the more you know, the more you're forearmed and forewarned. And so I think there is a positive side of it, to kind of encourage people not to go down the path where they become like the people that are in not only Days of Darkness, but the other hellscapes. And so they could recognize evil when it's percolating under the surface in their world, that sometimes it does take on that veneer of, something very slick or something very attractive, but under the surface, it's something monstrous. And so I think that theme recurs in a lot of places in all my Hellscapes books, and about the dangers of that. Don't be fooled by the images. Don't be fooled by, the slickness of the packaging. The monster is just beneath. And so I think that's a positive thing about the Hellscapes books, is that they get you to kind of start thinking in that way, and that makes you defend yourself, I think, better against the things that are in the world and that are real. And yeah, evil does exist. I mean, I think we can admit that.
Oh yeah.
that there are evil individuals and actions out there, and so this is about dealing with that and the unpleasant side, but yeah, and there's a positive to it. So
nice. Excellent. All right. Okay. Now I mentioned earlier that the Days of Darkness, the book is available. It's in ebook and print. It's out now.
yes,
Now, obviously, you can pick it up on Amazon. Is it available on any other platforms?
Should be available. It's supposed to be available on pretty much any platform online where you usually get books.
Okay.
So, and
excellent.
bookstores can get it in. I don't know how many have stocked it on their shelf, but bookstores can get it in. So yeah, definitely encourage you to ask for it at your library. Yeah, if you have an independent bookstore, yeah, definitely give them the sale. If you have a local bookstore, yeah, get them to order it and do it that way. And but if you don't have that option, yeah, online.
Okay, very good. And where can my audience find you online?
The best place to find me is under StephenZimmer.com. It's just my name, and just on, like, as on the screen, I spelled my name with a PH, Zimmer. But StephenZimmer.com is a one locus to find me around. But yes, most of my handles are under Stephen Zimmer 7 on most social media. Though on the X app, formerly Twitter, it's SG Zimmer. So yeah, they can, but under those things, yeah, you can find me most anywhere.
Okay. Now, will you have, I assume you will have physical copies of the book at Imaginarium to sign for folks? Will you
I sure will, even though, yeah, I have to say, I will not be at the table. It'll be
that's right. You'll be a little busy, won't you?
I'll be a little busy because I'm the co-director of this what's grown into a very, very large event. But yes, I'm not hard to find, just like everybody at Imaginarium. Everybody's accessible, including me. And so if people do get it, yeah, you'll be able to find me, and I'll be absolutely happy to sign it and personalize it and all that. But yeah, we will have a table where it will be available.
Okay. I'll give you guys all a little hint, a little tip. At Imaginarium, you can go ahead and buy your books from the 7th Star Press table at any time, but the best time to catch Stephen is Sunday afternoon.
Yes.
That's late in the day, Sunday.
Yeah. That's when I go on what I call cruise control, because everything is finally coasting to the finish line, and I don't have 100 million things to worry about. So Sunday afternoons is usually when I'm out on the floor and finally getting to visit people, and the madness is taken care of.
That's when you can get your book signed.
Yeah, Friday is the worst day. That's when everybody's checking in. That's the craziest moments.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Well, Steve Shrewsbury has joined us in the chat. Hello, Steve.
Oh, Shrews.
You've appeared as we have finished.
Yes. Yeah. Talk about an amazing author. Shrews is, he is incredible. Yeah, he's like a lot of people call him, and I agree. The reincarnation of Robert E. Howard. Yes, falls along those lines, and he's got a brand new one that's imminent. That's what I say. Currently, I got a surprise for Shrews this weekend. So yes, he's getting a scoop right here. But I have a surprise coming in his way this weekend.
Okay, very good. Now I read the Red Waves of Slaughter. That's in that Titan Books series. Yeah. I read that one. I know it's been like within the last month or so. The days all swim together now, right? But I read that one recently, and that was a good short story. That was a shorter one. It wasn't one of his novels. That was one of the shorter ones.
Yeah, his heroes like Darius Legal and Rogan and all of them. I mean, they are just amazing. I mean, I love
warriors.
Them. Yeah, I love them.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, Stephen, I have to say thank you for joining us again. We have covered good stuff about Days of Darkness. I hope that folks have been intrigued by the story and the elements therein.
I hope so.
Is there anything else that we should chat about in the story? Have we covered it?
I think we've covered quite a bit.
I think we covered a lot in 30 minutes.
We sure have.
Gee
Thumbs up for
whiz.
despair, right?
That's right. Thumbs up for despair.
Yeah.
That's our new catchphrase.
Yeah.
Thumbs up for despair.
Yeah, when you
All
said
right.
that on your review the other day, I just I loved it so much, and the young ones that live here while they're beginning their day of homeschooling, they all said that thumbs up for despair as they began their day of homeschooling.
That's our new catchphrase. All
Yeah,
right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for
you're
joining
welcome.
me. And thank you, everyone who tuned in. Thank you, Dwan and Steve, for joining us in the chat. And let's see if I can end this thing off. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.